The best lawyers aren't found in the big law firms. They're found in the stories of those who left. Hello, listeners and viewers of the Sell Life for Lawyers podcast. Today's going to be a very unusual one because for the first time in this podcast, and probably in a long time for me, someone's going to flip the script on me and they're going to interview me. And it's one of our League Loot partners who I believe is capable of doing it, and I trust enough to put my own thoughts into his hands. So this one is going to be unique because I am actually the special guest.
Cool, mate. So as you know, I'm a massive fan of podcasts and I love this medium, and I love how proactive and active you've been in yours for the last however long. How long has it been, mate?
To be honest, I've done a few different podcasts. The Sell Life one, though, that was from the get-go. We knew we needed a podcast. So 9 months?
9 months. Okay, cool, nice. So you've been rolling out episodes pretty reliably for 9 months. How many have you done, roughly?
Well, I did guest ones. I think we're up to number 17. But before that, I decided to read my book to everyone. Well, 2 reasons. I knew the stats. Most podcasts don't go beyond 20 episodes. And if you go beyond 20 episodes, you are effectively in the top 5% or 10% or something. So I was like, well, I can get 14 self-recorded episodes as my book. And me and Courtney wanted to give the book away. So I was like, that's a way of giving it away. And then 17. So we're up to like 31, 32 episodes or something. Nice. So technically, we're not like a Joe Rogan yet, but it's in the top percentage of just because we're consistent.
Yeah, no, mate, good on you. I remember looking at the same stats back in the day, and it used to be even lower. It used to be about 7 episodes at one point. But I think, since then, this medium, I don't know if you noticed, it became quite popular. But yeah, so yes, no, that's really cool, mate. So that's good on you, because that's, you're starting to approach like that real sticky sort of time frame now. So keep it going, mate, 'cause it delivers the goods, and it's a great way to get out there in front of people. So look, so obviously last time we spoke, we got right into it on networking, and we got into some interesting stuff around personality types and all of that. So similarly today, I wanted to kind of, get into some deeper stuff on, what's driving you, what's driving the Sell Life, what's driving you and Courtney, and what it is you're really doing and why you're doing it and all of that good stuff. And looking at that from a practical and, if you will, a philosophical point of view, it's like, because ultimately, that's what if you're in business and you're working with purpose, it's kind of where those things meet that magic starts to happen. So with that in mind, what in your own journey, there's a quote that I remember from early in us getting to know each other. Like, you talk about the rising tide lifting all boats, which is a phrase that I love as well. And so I just want to unpack, like, how did that show up for you early on and start to, be so, such a big part of your messaging when it comes to the Sell Life?
I've had that, and I like to, I wish I had a screenshot or something, because I've had the Jim Rohn quote on my LinkedIn since I started my LinkedIn, because I got the LinkedIn when it was probably 2013 or 14 or 15, I don't know when it was, and I had it on there. So it was the years just prior to that when I guess I just got into some of the Tony Robbins stuff, and then when I got into Tony Robbins, I was like, well, he got taught by someone, and I just kept going further and further back. And for me, it was to see, I was on a journey of what's true and how to live your life, because I'm not a religious person myself, but I do know you need a framework on how to live your life. And from what I could see, both from growing up in a religious household, the mentors I've had, the people around me, the rising tide lifts all boats. It has very little negative connotation. And the Jim Rohn quote is, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll have everything you need or want. And I've always had big dreams to sort of have a big impact from a very young age. I don't know where it came from. I just thought I wanted to have a big impact on the world. And having a bit of financial success and just different success in business younger, it made me realize it wasn't really the finances that were going to do it for me. So I needed to set a better goal. And so, like, every business we've had has had the same ethos. Like, Courtney and I we met in a cafe that I was running, and we ran that successfully for a number of years and then sold. The next business we did within a couple of years was solar-powered coffee carts. And funnily enough, the message in the marketing was, you're making your boss too much money. Why not start your own coffee cart business as a barista? Which is the identical message sell now, because I basically say you're making the bosses too much money. Big difference. The lawyers are actually making their bosses enough to build a beach house every year. In the coffee industry, hospitality is not quite as lucrative. But we found that, like, the business succeeded for us in hospitality because I guess every person that came through the door, whether they're just getting a cup of coffee or something, our thing was, if we can make their day a little better, and I still believe this, coffee shop owners and baristas, they deal with the nurses, the paramedics, the doctors, the lawyers. They deal with every spectrum of the community. And if they can make that person's day 10% better, that's actually a massive impact across the community. Yeah. And so that's how we approached what was called Pedals Espresso. Yeah. And then that's how, when we got into law, that's how we approached it as well, because I just can't see a negative, if you implement it to its fullest, like believe in that to your core, I can't see how it can end negatively, because even if you don't end up as financially successful or where you wanted to be, you'll feel good because you know you genuinely did try and help everyone, and maybe it didn't work out. Our businesses haven't always worked out. We're hoping this one does, but we feel good about ourselves because we don't leave a trail of destruction. We leave a trail of, hopefully, people who feel empowered having met us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Love that. I love that. That's cool, mate. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Like, I think that, there's a couple of essential things that, like, I don't know if I'd say winners believe, but certainly some of the more inspirational ones seem to at least speak to is, one is about agency, your ability to create in your life, and the importance of wearing that particular, or holding that particular belief system really tightly, and closely followed by this idea that me winning doesn't mean you have to lose. Like, if we can all, if I win, I can actually help more people win. Like, even people who perhaps you wouldn't expect, like competitors, that's what we talk about that now in networking, getting people who are close to each other, thinking about collaboration and looking where the gaps are and trying to get them to rise above, like, territorial behavior, close-sum thinking, i.e. if I win, you lose a bit, or if you win, I lose a bit, and being fearful from that place. So, yeah, and the rising tide lifting all ships, it's there's a certain level of courage required to actually act that way. It's easy to say, but it's not so easy to do. No,
and that's where I think I look at it, it's the burden, but the blessing of leadership is no wars have ever been started in an abundant society. Yeah. They get started when everyone has a scarcity mindset. And so if you don't want to see conflict and you don't want to see that, and most people don't, unfortunately there are people not naive enough to think there's not people who want to watch the world burn, but most people don't. And the way to prevent it, I think, is to just look at, no one is your competitor. Like, ultimately, no one is. And I'm more and more, I've had, like, competitive streaks, and technically, yes, people might want some of the market share we're after, but I look at it, particularly in business now, but even more in life, what problem was I put here to solve?
Yeah.
Like, what problem do I uniquely have a life experience that no one else in the world has had, and they haven't, no matter what. No one has someone that, you might have someone close, they went to the same law school, then they went to the same big firm, and then they went out on their own and they followed a similar path, but it won't be identical because your personal life experience will change. And so what's the problem you uniquely can solve? And then how many people can you solve it for at the lowest possible cost?
Yeah.
And, like, that's not a charitable thing. That's the entrepreneurial endeavor to me, is pick a problem and as narrow as possible and solve it for as many people as possible. And if you can if it's $1 problem for everyone, but you solve it for 1 billion people, happy days. So if you can solve, and that's what I like about the AI, and that's when we launched this, was I was doing and I've done 1,500 calls now, and every week I do another probably 20 calls with lawyers, and I know I help solve a lot of the same problems, but then solve new problems. And if we record it, then the next person coming along in 6 months when they're starting a firm doesn't have to solve the same problem. And so the cost of them succeeding becomes lower. And I go, that's, underpinning this is that scarcity. You're right. Breaking people out of it is a huge thing. But if you don't, you're destined to be a lonely, miserable... It's true. It's not good to withhold.
For sure. I mean, it's like you're immediately creating a constraint on your own sort of identity and your own growth. If you don't believe there's expanse in all areas of your life, if there's new available territory, then you've kind of shut off, what you could become. And that very much stealing from Tony Robbins there, mate. So, but it's a good way to look at it. And in my experience, people who think in terms of expansion, so like, I want to learn more about X, Y, or Z. It doesn't even matter what. It's like, I want to learn more. People who learn more earn more. Like, that's an expansive pursuit. If you want to help 50 people this month and you manage it and 500 in the next 11, it's an expansive pursuit. And there seems to be a strong relationship between those who are open and think in terms of what can be grown together, or for yourself even, seem to do better than those who feel closed,
Yeah, and if you frame it when you come into business, and I'm preparing a lot of content, but this is where I want the Cell Life message we want focused on is, who are you? What is the unique problem you are solving for the world, for as many people as possible? And because then if someone else says, I'm also doing that, they ain't your competitor, or not enough people have that problem, which means you have for me, an obligation to pick a bigger problem. Because if that person says, I want to make every lawyer, for us, if someone else says, we want to make sure the traditional structure where lawyers at the bottom do all the work, but it all feeds to the top, if anyone else says, we want to help people do that as well, sweet, because I can't help all of them. As much as I want to, we're not going to be able to help absolutely everyone. And if someone else wants to help with this problem, it's a big problem. And happy days, you're not my competitor, you're going to help solve it. And then I'll go, if we've solved it and suddenly the system's running better, it's more economical, there's better access to justice because we've lowered the cost, because we're teaching lawyers how to embrace AI technologies, and they're all happier lawyers, they love what they do, and they're passionate about what they do. The justice system gets better, sweet. I'm happy to go solve another problem because I know my entrepreneurial brain will never shut off. We'll go do something else, but they're not a competitor, or you haven't picked the problem you're actually solving. And that's where I see anyone with the scarcity, I can see quickly, you haven't actually taken hold of what value am I adding to this economy by seeing a need, and I'm the one who's going to fill that need. And it's a big thing, but that's fundamentally, I think every marketing agency would love it if someone came to them and said, this is what I do, this is the person I do it for, and this is the problem I'm going to solve for every single person who fits that criteria. Your marketing team would it'd be far easier for them, but no one has that. Well, not no one, but a few people, not enough business owners have that clarity to go, this is what I'm going to do, and just take it on. That's your mission.
No, I love that. I mean, it's a good point that you raise. Like, I've recently been trying to figure out a really quick, a relatively fast way to help people get really clear on their vision statement and their mission critical statement, and then their mission statement, and then mission critical elements that feed that. So, and I use those terms really specifically because behind those are definitions. So the vision statement is, what's the aggregated external impact? The mission statement is, what's the internal impact? And by internal, we mean you have on clients. And then the mission criticals are almost like a mirror to the pain point. So it's like, these are the things that we are going to shift for all or some subsector of our clients who need it. So not all have all the pain points. Some will have all, some will have two, some will have one, but we're going to shift one of those. That's the transformational gap that we cross with them, if that makes sense. So it's a little system I built recently. And because we, same as you, we at Now Group, we constantly are trying to help people get clearer on not just knowing their pain points, but being able to articulate them as well. Because that's really important.
That to me, that word clarity is like I've realized in the last 3 years, I've been in all my entrepreneurial endeavors with Courtney, and even in the jobs I've had, the sales jobs, the entrepreneurial brain is for most of your life, it's actually a curse, I believe. It's a blessing because it makes you step out into autonomy and freedom of self-employment, which I think is fundamentally what prevents tyranny.
Yeah.
When a man, woman, or anyone says, no, I have autonomy over my calendar, I can earn my own keep, and you can't tell me what to do in the next 24 hours, that prevents tyranny because you've got that ability.
Yeah.
But getting them there, then once you've made that leap, everything, you see possibility everywhere. And so until you narrow in, and this is to be honest, Hormozy helped me do that by simply me listening to every single podcast.
Yeah.
About. I was like, what is the one problem only Lofty can solve?
Yeah.
And then having done that in the last 2 years, it's sort of weirdly boring. You're not much of a party guest or anything like that because my mind is so much on. This is a big problem I see.
Yeah.
If I can solve it or continually work to solve it, it's going to be ridiculously financially lucrative for my family.
Yeah.
But secondly, I can make decisions so much quicker than anyone else I talk to.
Yeah.
And I realize that. And people, at the end of calls I do now, I've noticed people, and a few people have just commented, and I was like, clarity is like transferable. Because when I have it, at the end of it, they're like, how are you, like, you can just make a decision so quick. I'm like, because it either fits the mission or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, no. Like, it's an instant no. And that's what I find, that clarity point, if more people have that, like, the world's going to get better real fast, particularly with all the tools we now have. But we've got to help people find it.
Absolutely. And I know when Hormozy talks a lot about the etymology of the word decision, and this idea of cut what you're cutting away, a real decision. And only hearing him say it, after about the 5th time I heard him say it, I realised I've always thought of myself as decisive, and I realised I'm actually not. Like, I want to edge my bets. I've got this, I think it's a normal instinct and a common instinct, but not necessarily a particularly useful one to kind of have a safety net in one direction or the other. And without realising, I thought I was all in, but the way I was doing certain things meant in some ways I wasn't, and that might be showing up in subtle areas in the business. And it made me just keep thinking about this idea of cutting away. And when you've got clarity, obviously, if you've got clarity, you've got the ability to cut away, but then you've got to actually deploy the skill of decisiveness and slicing off what isn't relevant or useful or whatever. So, that's been a reasonably recent journey for me of going, actually, how good am I at decisions? Like, how good am I at the cutaway bit? I'm good at knowing what I want to do. I'm not so good at dropping the things that aren't going to contribute quickly or as emphatically as they might, things that could be just dripping energy out, even subtly, So I think that, like, it's like, maybe taking what you said, couldn't agree more. I've got my own little system I use when I work with people. I call it the strategic trinity, and at the top of the trinity is clarity. And clarity, it can come from many places, but purpose is a really good one. Like, what's the impact we want to have, And then if I can't say, if a decision that's 7 steps down, if I can't see the link, it can be a decent link, like a longish link, but I need to know exactly that that's going to feed what came out in the clarity, if that makes sense. Like, I need to be able to see that relationship. And
because for me, it's come down to, I know I've been a very good salesman my whole life, and I also know I've been able to push my way through with overconfidence when the product or service wasn't as good as said. And because people will follow when there's certainty in your voice. Like, the cults didn't stop existing because we had more access to information. In fact, there's more cults than ever, and cult leaders know these tactics, and so do people in power, like the Robert Greene laws of power. All these things have been around since the Stone Ages. There are ways of manipulating people through confidence, and clarity is one of them. But I go, if you actually use that as an empowered thing with good ethics, and then when someone's on a call for a lawyer, they want to know, like, they're going to talk to 4 other people, but if you, in your voice, and this is what I know I portray through the video on calls with people, I will bridge that gap between you don't think you can build a client base and that freedom that you do want. We will bridge that gap together between me, you, and Courtney. We will figure out what it is. We've probably already figured it out because we've done it this many times. But if we haven't, and you're a special case that we were like, good Lord, I didn't realize everyone hated someone with a red beard. Didn't know that was going to be a thing, but we'll solve it. Let's figure out a way to solve this.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and impart, I guess, on the lawyers to go, if that's your problem, like you actually own it, to me, it's almost like that's your kid.
Yeah.
And what would you do to protect your kid? Because I'd go a long way. And once you actually own that, the confidence that comes through your voice and your stature when you're on that sales call, it's not selling. It's just, I will solve this problem for this amount of money. You can go somewhere else, absolutely, but the conversions just go up. And if they don't, it wasn't meant to be.
Well,
but if you've got that clarity,
the product mustn't be the right fit for the market that you're talking to. It's the only other option. Yeah, mate. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. So, look, I'm tempted to riff on charisma and the link. When you get enough warmth mixed with enough competence, and that conviction comes through, that's when you can really, you can guide people, you can persuade people. People don't like that word these days, but it's undeniably true. I think what's really cool is when you've got a product behind you that you actually feel good in that moment and good in that conviction, because you are going to have that positive impact. You are going to make someone's life better. You are going to create an upward spiral that you talked about before. So using your powers for good, mate, that's what you're doing. You're using your powers for good.
Yeah. Oh, because I've come across plenty who have used them not for good.
Exactly.
So I know what it is for someone to take the power away from you. And I'm like, I'd never want to. I know what that feels like. So there's no way I want that to be something I leave someone with.
No, definitely. There's enough of that goes on, and I think we're at an age where people are wising up, and you're like, I feel like value-driven businesses are all over the place and winning, and value-driven operators like Robbins, like Hormozy, like these people. There's a reason they're gaining ground and influence. So, mate, look, speaking of clarity, let's maybe go get in a little bit more to some of the sort of, I don't know if tactical is the right word, but brass tacks, let's say, right? So pain points, like one of the things I'm always really interested in is talking about pain points. And, you and I understand what you guys do at the Cell Life in a really broad sweep, but we've never actually had a good discussion about maybe your top 3 things that you turn around for people. So you've talked to a lot of things like confidence, there's even been some touch on identity, and I feel like there's the pain points that we're going to talk about, and then there's the layers that sit just beneath that. So if we can spend a few minutes just maybe unpacking that. Like, I know you know these by rote, so I'll let you go in a sec. So, but if you give me your top 3 pain points, then maybe give me your thesis on what sits just beneath them, if that makes sense, that holds people back, holds lawyers back.
It's funny because I don't have the full clarity because we're literally working through this at the moment, and I think it's an ongoing thing because
absolutely,
the more we interview with people, the more we uncover more things. But one of them is, it's very broad, but it's people seeking permission to do something, and it's because, and I know this, I've written about it a lot over the years. I'm surprised any entrepreneurs come out of our education system because from 5 years old, you're asked to sit still, to follow direction, and you're punished if you don't just automatically follow authority. And if you don't have parents or a community around you sort of saying, hey, every now and then it's okay to challenge that authority. Sometimes it is arbitrary. Sometimes it is tyranny. Most just come out being ingrained, follow that. And particularly in law, it's even more instilled because it's such a serious business. If you've gone from school, which is that environment where sit still, follow the rules, follow these systems, to university, follow this how to research, follow this system, do as you're told. And literally law is about precedent. So look to historical and more authoritative figures for your permission to act. Yeah. And then you get into this structure where you are deemed by society, lawyers, doctors, it's sort of thing, but any first-year lawyer would say they certainly don't feel like they're top of the world because they're not. They're at the bottom of a very toxic food chain. And so you do that for another 5 years. You've got 25 to 28 years of someone being told don't make a move without permission. Do not send that letter without the partner's fingerprints all over it. So
I like that.
Unlocking the simple ability that I don't need anyone's permission to start my own firm.
Yeah.
You need agreements, you need your partner on board, you need family on board, you need certain ingredients, but you don't need permission.
No.
And so I'm working out how do we, like that's it. Again, it's a deep question, but the reason we're trying to solve it is because I know that's a problem I need to help lawyers uncover. And ideally, I try and do it in 30 minutes on a plan your exit call with them. So that's the big one, the permission. And from that then sort of starts to flow that confidence of, wow, the world didn't cave in because I didn't ask someone for permission. So then they can start, and then they get to the point, that's probably when they need to uncover the clarity. Because for so long they've been told by someone else, like sometimes their worth has come from someone else giving the permission. Great job, you get a little bonus this year, like the client was happy. It's been external validation, I guess. And to find the clarity, you got to go digging to figure out who you are. And I know I teach sales and marketing, which is a pretty surface level thing, but the way we try and do it is find out who are you uniquely as an individual. Your DNA is, forget religion, your DNA is 100% unique. No one will ever argue that. So whatever your experience has been, you are uniquely positioned. And the way I frame it, and I guess teach it tactically in our Core 4 course, is I want you to go into a boxing fight as a heavyweight against a lightweight. So there's just no chance that you will ever lose that fight. The only way you can have that unfair advantage in the marketplace is knowing truly who you are. So that's, I guess, the second one, the pain point, is that clarity. How the hell do I find that?
Yeah.
And that can be something that unfortunately can send people on a bit of a tailspin because they've never had to dig that deep. They were told you were good enough, you got high enough grades to be picked for this law firm, and you followed everyone's direction and you worked 12 hours instead of 8 for the last 5 years, and you got to this point and then you realize, I don't want to go any further. I'm killing myself for this firm who doesn't actually care about me. Maybe I'll do my own thing, but you got to rebuild a lot of internal infrastructure to then make that leap. Once you've got those two things,
it calls back to that idea of agency, right? You're talking, that willingness to step into your own autonomy. And I think, you talk about people needing permission. The irony is if you give them permission, they haven't exactly done what they need to do, right? The whole point is they should not even need permission anymore, right? But that's a difficult thing to gift someone, to coach out of someone or coach into someone. And I would say when you're speaking there, mate, it's like what it made me think about was like, the secret, I think, that's happening that people need to confront is they feel way safer in this nice, in their non-permissioned relative walled garden where someone else is responsible. I wouldn't say all of your clients, but there'll be a portion of your clients where the biggest thing holding them back is that sense of safety they get, that they're not actually responsible. They're not actually, in the end, they're essentially still a servant. The beautiful thing about servitude is it's always somebody else's fault if it goes wrong, like in a sense, because you're not a leader. So at that point, so to step into that, it's like, it's definitely a scary, a stupidly simple but scary thing.
Oh no, we know because like we help people place them in what's called a consultancy program, which has all the infrastructure you need. It actually has all the guardrails that you're used to over those 5-10 years as a lawyer. And even that is a big leap because ultimately it comes down to you'll only get paid if you've built the client base. So, and we know that's our bridge. Yeah. Like when it all boils down, every conversation comes to, obviously I'd do this if I could get the client base. And so for me, once I can get someone to that point, that's where the third thing, and I'm pretty open with everyone, none of what I teach, sales, building a referral network, it's all freely available. Yeah. It's information that is completely out there. Sometimes it needs to be from a different messenger, and sometimes it needs to come down to a personalized version for every person, which is what we try and do. Because if information was the answer to sort of solve the problem, the problems would be solved. YouTube has been around long enough now that all the answers are out there. All the books are there. The Stoics have written enough books.
But again,
things through history are there. It's not the information. So
it's that clarity piece as well, though, mate. Right? Like the first thing you do when you give someone YouTube is you give them overwhelm. Like, you know, if they're out there looking for answers, with the way that information is now, like that's almost guaranteed to overwhelm. And when you're uncertain, the last thing you need is more things to try and decipher, to filter, you know, than you had before. And look, you said something else before as well about sales and marketing being superficial. And, you know, just, you know, like what you're like, that clarity you're providing people with your lived experience, and not just, you know, that has a couple of different, you've got a couple of different steps in your origin story, so to speak, that feed that in a very broad way. Like it's a holistic experience you've had. And like you said about your clients, they've all got their unique problem they solve. And that's precisely what you're bringing to the table for them, right? Like it's your unique experience plus character and what have you and learnings. But I think like when you deliver, like delivering knowledge is one thing, delivering it with wisdom, that is a whole different level. And I think that's what you're offering people, like, you know, and that's the most valuable thing in the world. Like, you know,
we named, like, trust me, plenty of people, because there's a lot of marketing, like setting up a marketing agency is kind of an overnight. You can do it pretty quickly. And selling is also, no matter what, it invokes Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
I like Grant Cardone, but that Grant Cardone energy, the 90s, 80s, always be selling type mantra. And so, but for me, and it took me actually years, it's only in my late 20s, I came to terms with, I'm proud to call myself a salesman because true salesmen are true problem solvers, and they don't sell a product that won't solve the problem for the client. And that's how they get their reputation. That's how they continue to grow. And so we went with, one, because it was a good acronym, but two, because it was personal to me. Every lawyer says I don't, and they still all tell us this. It's funny. All the members, literally, most of them would have said I don't do sales or I hate to be salesy or something
totally.
like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you've joined a program called the Sell Life, and because for me, maybe it's one of those things I, you know, take off a mission you probably can't solve. But if I can make people proud to say I love to sell or I enjoy selling because they realise the definition of it is actually different to what they've envisioned, and changing that definition in their head. That's why the Sell Life. This shows up in every area. Like ultimately, for a lawyer, you are in a courtroom trying to convince a judge to either keep your client out of jail or allow your client to keep their money, whatever it might be. That's a persuasion game. That's a sales game. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, there's law and there's things that has to back it up, but selling is, and if you have enough time, any salesman would say this, if I have enough time with someone, I'll uncover what their true pain points are, and I'll be able to cross-reference the pain point with how the product will solve it. And so then I go, so it's just a matter of time. So if we can give people enough time, and lawyers say this, once I get someone on the call, it's fine. And I said, that's because they're on the call because they have that pain point right now. So it's just a timing thing. So if you show up when they don't need you yet, then they'll call you when they do need you, and then it's not selling. It's like you're not going to say to someone, hey, do you need a divorce lawyer? When they're just the day after their wedding. No, that's not the time to offer that service. Do you want a property trend? It's Hormozy says someone sits down at a restaurant and they're starving and you sell them a steak and they eat it. You say, do you want a second one? No, I'm full. But if they show up at the restaurant and you say, do you want 2 steaks? They'll order 2 at the start. So sell at the point of most thirst.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I love that.
And so I tell the lawyers, like, and I've had to embody this myself, and I still struggle with it when people say no. It's not like every person I talk to becomes an advocate of what we do or signs up or does something, but I've learnt it's a timing thing.
Yeah, totally.
That time then wasn't right, but in 6 months they might come back. And as like our entire marketing philosophy and just what we put out is, as long as this won't offend or cause a negative connotation, put out as much content as possible, because we just don't know what day they've just had enough, just reached the moment that the pain is enough to go. I think Jordan Peterson talks about it. You've got that push-pull, pain or pleasure, but oftentimes, and I think for lawyers especially, pain is a big one, and it's got to get pretty dark before they're willing to step out from what is a comfortable job and a comfortable living But by God, if anyone actually knew what goes on in these firms, it is toxic as hell. And they would call it an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, what I've been calling out is this is wrong. And the way to solve it is, have you ever seen Atlas Shrugged? Read the book by Ayn Rand?
I'm aware of it as a sort of cultural...
it's a must-read for an entrepreneur. John Galt goes around the world and knocks on the shoulders of every successful entrepreneur who built the railways, moves people around the world, the things that keep the world moving. And he says, they're just going to keep taking from you. They're going to keep taxing you. They're going to keep asking more of you without you, and you'll end up just a shell of a human being. So what happens is they leave society, and society obviously crumbles very quickly. And for me, that was the whole, with Cell and with this whole mission, was the law firms are being held up profitably by this level of 5-year lawyers who have all the experience, all the knowledge, and they're doing all the work, but they're not keeping any of the rewards. And law is all about up here. So if I can show them a path, use up here to solve problems directly for the clients. Don't have this middle person taking all the meat off the bone. That's how we can change the industry and, for me, the justice system. Because everyone knows a sole practitioner or a boutique lawyer gives a better service. It's personal, and they actually take on a bit more of the client's sort of.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And so I go, if we can empower that, and Australia's fortunately already has a mentality of a lot of the law firms are already sole practitioners, but it is hard out there alone. So let's come together.
Yeah.
Big power to change, make a big impact on the industry.
Yeah, nice. Good on you. That's awesome, man. That makes a lot of sense. So, look, we've covered off a bit on the pain points, but one last question, sort of in that kind of general vicinity. What's the biggest sort of mindset shift that you are trying to impart on lawyers? You talked to this in a sense, but and how does that relate to, or rather, how often do you see people coming in who've been attempting to break out on their own, and they're really struggling, and they're doing it tough on their own without really telling anyone, and it's that mindset shift that makes all the difference or is holding them back? What's that secret there? What have you seen as a pattern there?
That's where I've realised, because we. When you talk to investors and stuff about like how big can we scale, where can we go from here, and we've come back to, there is a certain aspect of this that I don't want it to be super reliant on just me, but it kind of is, because I find you need to spend the time with a person to discover what it is personally holding them back. But the one pattern is, and the consistency is, Naval Ravikant, no one will value you more than you value yourself. Fundamentally, this, like, when you actually look at this objectively, we're talking to people who are 10, 15 years into their career. They're sometimes general counsels of big banks. Like, when you look at their resume or their profile on LinkedIn, you go, that person has it made, and they've made it from the outside. But that person still has... They know all their mistakes, all their failures, all their shortcomings, all the things that haven't gone well in life. And that's where that Naval Ravikant, it's a personal thing to me, and I certainly haven't mastered it, but I've gotten better at it. No one will value you more than you value yourself. You may, like, you have the best partner in the world like I do. That's kind of how my level of value has come up, because someone else saw it. And so for me, if I can just impart a little bit of that on a call with someone to say, hey, Chris, or hey, whoever you are, I see you, and what you've done is incredible. And here's a pathway to expand upon that. Maybe I can increase the value they see in themselves. That's why I get a bit emotional, because that's what, fundamentally, if I can do that for enough people, I know I'll leave a good legacy.
Yeah. Mate, it seems to be an incredibly, like, diffuse or persistent human issue. Like, if my wife enrolled in the Rise 2 Summit. Tony's, one of his big free event that he does to get folk into UPW is Unleash Your Potential event. And it's a really cool event. And I sat and listened to quite a few hours of it in the end with her, because I love Tony Robbins, and I I always like to capture a bit of it when I can. And look, I couldn't believe, I mean, ain't the value it delivered, but how recurrent the themes are, like in whoever you're listening to, like whenever it comes to, you know, people essentially getting more out in their life or being more in their life, it comes down to what they believe about themselves. And you know, this is one sort of expression of that, is how much you value yourself is one expression of it. And it's like, and that's all tied up in identity. And essentially all personal growth and transformation, if you will, seems to center on the story you hold about yourself. You know, and that can be super subtle or it can be like obvious, but that's always the thing that holds people back from anything they want in life.
Yeah, it's the limiting, and that's the turning up. It's the limiting beliefs, and that's and because I know it personally, my value has not come from my own, and I've been known as one of the most confident people. In fact, people hated me when I played soccer because I was too cocky. But I knew that was false security. I just knew how to rile people up and to use tactics to do it to appear false bravado. Yeah. But that little scared boy never left, and it's having someone external to me see the value in me, just not for any of my achievements or anything, just having you in my life makes my life better, like that simple thing. I think that's what people, lawyers, anyone, like we're specifically focused on helping these lawyers, and it's just it's one of those ones, and I realise why no one has done what we've done yet is because people just assume, no, you're a lawyer, you're already at the top of the, you know, food chain, so to speak. But the fact is, they're still human beings, and in fact, they're working in a system that, compared to many industries, I've worked in construction, and it's a hard industry. It's certainly not as bad the way it treats the majority of the people upholding the industry. And so, if we can, that's sort of fundamentally, that's why that rising tide lifts all boats is everywhere through our stuff. Because I know even if it's just a little bit, someone sees a little more value in themselves, and they attribute that back to either us or our brand. Well, it's just a matter of time then. This will have an impact. For
sure. And the flip side of it, or the extension of that is the ability for someone to see value in themselves is their ability to see value in the other. And when you change someone's relationship with yourself, you change their relationship with everybody they know instantaneously. And that is, that's impact. There's no doubt about that. There's just no doubt about it. And on that note, mate, how important do you think community is as a function or as a tool for you in helping people, get more out of themselves or value themselves more? So obviously you're building this community on this shared journey. There's a natural principle of unity, if you will. How important do you think the community is for people to move beyond those limitations and make change?
Massive. And it's becoming more and more. I think we're going to look back historically, the way we look at cigarette companies from the 80s and the 70s, we're going to look at social media companies for what horrific impact they did to us as human beings. In removing our ability to want to have people around us, which we innately do. We want to be in a community, if for nothing more than safety in numbers. And it comes across especially in law, because even if you're in a bad situation in a law firm, at least you are safe. Like, you might be getting whipped and you might be getting yelled at and you might be getting a lot of bad behaviours, and you're really burning the candle at both ends, but you're still safe. Yeah. And so when you're stepping out there on your own, and there is a bit of a mentality, I know, from particularly the bigger firms, the bigger brands, that, so-and-so went out on, they've given up almost. Look, they couldn't hack this thing. And so then someone goes out, they've lost most of their
support,
potentially friendships, for lack of a better thing, but colleagues and stuff. And so they're out there, and it's hard enough alone. Like, you're running a business, you're learning a brand new skill where everyone assumes you're the smartest person in the room because you're the lawyer, but you're a bit of a Bambi, a deer in the woods. But I don't know how to do marketing or run a trust. I never had to do all that. And you don't want to come across as not knowing. And so being in a community where you can just be effectively vulnerable. I don't have the answers. And I say it almost every week. I have no idea, but let's figure it out. We got 6 people in the room and you all got IQs of above 120. Surely we can figure out. Surely someone's faced a similar issue, and let's solve it. And that's Me and Courtney have a quote in the house. It's everywhere. Everything is figure outable. We just go, look, between me, you, and AI or our network, there's a solution to this problem. We're not that special of a business that
The unsolvable. Yeah.
And so the community, because lawyers, like, it's not like a super active or like there's a million posts going into our app or anything like that. But I've seen over now, we've been doing it 9 months. It's almost just them knowing it's there to go like, and because they're sole practitioners, so they're extremely busy, so they're not going to show up to networking every week. But it's there.
Yeah.
And so when they've had that tough week or whatever, they can jump in the app. If there's a stupid Giphy or I've done something funny because I just, like, life's too short, so everything I do is almost a joke. But there's something, they can come up, show up, have a bit of fun at networking. We'll ask you a silly question that you never thought you'd be asked as a lawyer. And you'll see everyone in the room is comfortable being a bit vulnerable. And I think that alone, yeah, that's what people are needing. And they're desperate for it because you're not going to get it. And you're not going to get it on any other social media, like the community groups or anything. That we built ours off everything else because I knew there needs to be a garden here that we are constructing that's keeping AI out and only keeping human voices in, and which means the news feed doesn't get filled. When you read it, a human's taken the time to write it. And a human a human who at least believes the rising tide lifts all boats, so at least you know, probably worth listening to.
Yeah, nice. They call that dark social. That's what they call that, dark social.
Yes.
I've got one of those spaces too. In our system, and for the same reasons, mate. So look, we've talked there for a wee while. So I'm going to ask you one more question. And I'm going to be a little bit opulent and ask you and come at it from my sort of natural bias. So one of the things I love is to be able to give people some really actionable tips or tricks or or frameworks, processes. So you've got a youngish lawyer, young to being self-employed, let's say, and, young enough to be young as a lawyer, I don't know, late 30s, early 40s, goes out on their own. What are 2 or 3 behaviours, habits, practices that they can put in place that can create immediate or reasonable amount of momentum in a reasonably good time frame?
And it's pretty quick to figure out, if I'm an employment lawyer, I'm going to have to help business owners with employment. Once you've got that nailed in, use ChatGPT to figure that out. Go to those clients, not looking for their work, looking for their bad experiences. And so go to them I call it research. And within 10 meetings or less, which you could do in a week if you really cram it in, get all the coffees done, you've got your pitch, your offer, and your marketing plan practically written by the people who you want to serve. And guess what? The next week, you go back to those people and say, here's an offer. Would you like to engage me? Whether the offer's perfect or not, the fact you listened to their problems, what they don't like about dealing with the lawyers in the past, and then said, I'm adjusting or my service will make sure it mitigates those pain points, you will get a decent percentage of them as clients. And so that's fundamentally... But a lot of lawyers don't want to do that because, again, people come to a lawyer because the lawyer is going to tell them. They come to a lawyer when they don't know the answers. So a lot of times the lawyer doesn't want to go to the client and say, you've got the answers, like reverse. But I find in doing that, like my favourite cold email campaign to accountants was, what do you hate about lawyers? And then it got a huge open rate and also landed me a lot of good referral partners.
Yeah, that's bloody brilliant.
And so it's just flipping it, and it's so simple because it's no cost. There's no marketing involved. You don't have to be an influencer. You could send that DM to 20 of your potential clients, and the earlier the better. Do it while you're still employed. Do it while you're working there. There's nothing wrong with doing market research while you're there. And guess what? Those business owners or those potential clients or referral, I'm big on don't go direct unless it's like you have to, but find referral partners. People by extension are dealing with your clients. And get them on board because you're a sole practitioner. You can't do all the selling yourself. But yeah, it's that research mode.
Love that.
And be sort of vulnerable enough to say, I don't have the answers. Yeah. I want to solve this problem. I want you to come to me every time you have an employment issue. But I want to know my service is up to scratch. I'll solve whatever the problem is. I've got those skills. But what do you need from me to make me the go-to person? and just being vulnerable enough to ask that is pretty straightforward. And when people do it, they're like, but will people answer? I'm like, why would they not?
Yeah.
Like, the fact is, Google, like, all these big companies have made their living because they've collected our data and they give us what we want when we want it as quick as possible. And we are giving up privacy in the space of convenience, but clearly it's a human trait and human nature. That's what you're doing on a smaller scale for your clients.
Totally.
They're giving up a little bit of, maybe they don't want to share it, but why wouldn't they want to know? I hate it when a lawyer gives me bill shock. I hate it when a lawyer says they'll call me back and do, like, it's simple little things. And then if you actually follow through on what they told you, by God, they'll be loyal to you as a client.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's really well put and really well said. I mean, there's so many different principles that you're speaking to there, you know, like, yeah. And, you know, to be understood, seek first to understand, you know, springs to mind. And, you know, you're talking about very straightforward market research, but what I really think that I think what you're really nailing there for me, and why it's such good advice to young lawyers from any of the denominations, if you will. And when I say young, I mean young to working for themselves. You know, if they're new to that process, new to that environment. What I really love about this is, one, it sets up a habit of leading with questions, like, which is a bloody good habit to build in life, let alone in business. And number two is, you're going to build relationships, but perhaps more than that, what was it I was trying to touch on there was, you know, obviously you're getting all of your pain points, you're getting all of those key data points for who your ideal client is going to be. You're just basically, you know, mapping that out right from the horse's mouth, so to speak, with complete certainty. And from that, you can build everything. Like, as in, for me, what I immediately saw was, you know, this is actually where we started at the front end of the call, I think. Like, you're then in a position where you can write down your top 3 to 5 pain points. You can write down your mission statement and your mission criticals, because these people are going to give them to you as they aggregate. And then from there, you can build a vision of what kind of impact you want to create as a lawyer. So, you know, yeah, it's a really stupidly simple system. And I think that might be why people wouldn't think of it, in a sense. Like, you know, it's almost so obvious, it's not obvious. And, you know, and to some people, yeah, that instinct won't come naturally to that many people, in my opinion. Like, I don't think that will, no, because I think you're right in what you're saying, that some of it is a vulnerability, but I think also it's like, there's like a fear that they're going to kind of be a nuisance a little bit, you know, like, to people. And actually, I've found that when you ask people honest questions, they actually love it. They really love it, because it's not all that common. Like, if you think about your experience on social media, most of the time you're being inundated by stuff you haven't chosen. So when someone comes to you and says, I just want to listen to you, like, you know, in life generally, but certainly in modern life with this onslaught that we get, it's actually quite rare and refreshing. And I think that's why it's powerful, what you've laid out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, mate. Good. Right, sweet. So I think we need to wrap up. So thanks so much for answering all those questions, mate. Is there any last little shares you want to give to the audience before we cut away today and get this thing through the editing?
Yeah. I'm going to say one thing, because they can type this into Amazon or Google and it'll come up. If you don't like your boss, burn the boats, which is the title of our book. And it actually says, don't burn the boats, because it's a roadmap. It's a free book. You can pay for the printing on Amazon for $10 or something, but it's literally a free book, which is the roadmap of, if you were to quit your job tomorrow with a mortgage, 2 kids, and no clients, what would you do? And so it explains what a certain lawyer does in a fun way. Fact and fiction. It's a mixture of, it's a fable. Some truth, some not. But yeah, that's the only thing I'd say.
Nice, mate. No, that's awesome. I love that. What a great idea, and what a great way to finish. Awesome. So they can find your book on Amazon, and you just got to pay for it to get printed, and then it's at yours in your hand. And I imagine...
You'll get it for free on the ebook. I think it's $0 if you're a Kindle
Amazing,
reader.
Amazing. Bloody love it, mate. Yeah. Good stuff. Cool. Jason, thanks so much for your time, and it's been great to hear a bit more about your passion for what you do and the purpose of it, and and some of those those details, mate. It's really cool to I love the fact that so many problems are, everyone's got the same problems in essence, you know, self-belief, you know, challenges with different elements like sales and things like that. You know, oh, I'm just not a sales. I've been in health and wellness, you know, different industries. I work with all kinds of business owners. So many of them have the same problems. But, you know, you're coming at it and you're solving it for this really particular group of people, and good on you for it. So great work you're doing, mate.
No, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for the interview.